Hi, welcome. If you didn't know that song, that is the song AnyRoad by George Harrison, what our company is actually named after. Thank you all for joining me today. My name is Jonathan Yaffe. I'm the CEO and co-founder here at AnyRoad. And today we're going to be talking about how brand experiences drive customer experience with first-party data. First-party data is in the news a lot. You've probably heard a lot about it. And we're going to dive into a little bit today on what first-party data is, how different companies are leveraging it, and really how to kind of balance that need for first-party data in modern business with things like privacy. So we're going to get started with a little agenda here. There we go. So we're going to start with a level set on definitions. Then we're going to cover the hype cycle around first-party data, as well as the factors beyond privacy that are affecting its importance. We'll talk about opportunities and challenges to improve your first-party data strategy using experiences. We're going to go through some practical examples and finally wrap up with some takeaways. I'd encourage you to share with each other and with us on social media. Our social handle is at AnyRoad on Twitter, and mine is Where is Yaffe? And you can always use the hashtag experiential to connect with one another. So we will definitely continue this conversation even after the webinar finishes. A little bit about us, quick overview of AnyRoad if you're less familiar. We were founded in 2013 and we're an experiential data platform for brands to scale and optimize customer experiences that change behavior. So we work with organizations like Budweiser, Honda, Michaels, Tabasco. All these companies count on AnyRoad to power everything from in-store appointments and services to activations, to tours, to classes. And really, when organizations want to scale experiential and do it because of data and engagement, they come to us. So without further ado, this is not an advertisement. Let's jump into the content. Okay, we're going to jump into definitions. There's a lot of jargon and acronyms out there. I apologize for the technical delay here. So, what is first-party data? We've heard a lot about this in the news. First-party data is data collected by a brand through its own system, such as sign-ups to an event. This is all opt-in. It is kosher all over the world, which is very different from second-party data, which is connected by another source and shared through an integration or partnership. So a good example of this is using your partner's customers and being able to remarket to them. Third-party data is collected from other sources and parties. So this could be intent data purchased through a data aggregator to enrich your CRM or Facebook. And this third-party data, without mincing words, is facing significant hurdles in the near future. And there's a good chance it's just going to disappear completely. What are branded experiences? So this is a broad term that can apply to activities including events, experiential marketing, activations, classes, in-store experiences. At AnyRoad, we believe that branded experiences have to trigger at least 3 senses, which means watching a YouTube video is not an experience. And just doing this simple test, does it trigger at least 3 experience? That actually is an experience. Does it trigger at least 3 senses? That actually makes an experience. So for example, a tour of a Budweiser factory is truly an immersive multi-sensory experience, which triggers all 5 senses. And so really what we're looking for is, are we able to build and scale experiential programs that trigger senses using this multi-sensory model and use that to actually pull in first-party data. So this is a great quote by Joseph Pine, who wrote the book, The Experience Economy. Time is the currency of experiences. If you get customers to spend more time with your business, they will spend more money on your offerings. And just to show the diversity of these programs, Diageo has distillery tours all over the world. Home Depot spends hundreds of millions of dollars on DIY workshops. Porsche is expanding their track days so you can go and drive a Porsche around. Nestle does in-store sampling all over the world. Miller Coors does field activations. Really what we see is that every scaling successful company is really doubling down on experiential programs. Hype cycles. So sophisticated marketers understand that first-party data is differentiating because it's proprietary, you actually own it. Relevant because it relates directly to you, your company, your customers, and consistent and high quality because it comes from the source. You don't need to buy it from somebody else. They also believe that first-party data is critical to better understanding consumer behavior, segments, and trends, and it allows you to deliver more tailored messages directly to your customers. But this is also creating a kind of crazy hype cycle around it. So you may have seen this before. Gartner coined this to describe a lot of different things in technology adoption. But with the surge in chatter around, everyone's talking about first-party data to model exactly where we're at. There is a lot of disillusionment, and we're hearing a lot of people just kind of be stuck figuring out, how do I actually leverage this in my own business? So what do? You search for Google. So you search for Google on first-party data, and you see things like Anheuser-Busch, which is an AnyRoad customer, has amassed data on 2.5 billion consumers, and he's using it to get around new ad targeting challenges. And this is actually allowing them to grow as much as 80%. A great article, which I highly recommend over on the right, by Boston Consulting Group is all about responsible marketing with first-party data. And so they explain how to not only generate first-party data and pull it in, but how to do it at scale. So first-party data strategies are not yet super popular. As you can see, 88% of marketers say collecting first-party data is a priority. Great. 41% of ad buyers don't believe their companies really understand the impact of third-party cookies' demise. And we'll talk a little bit more about this, but third-party cookies are dying. And only 28% of marketers say that their first-party data is significantly or fully used. What do we see this as? A huge opportunity. So how did we get here? Okay, because this has changed a lot. 3 things. Number 1, broken consumer trust by generally large corporations mistreating consumer data. 83% of consumers are concerned about sharing personal data online. Not surprising. 72% would stop buying from a company because of privacy concerns. 72%! This is crazy. Second, we have privacy regulation. We have GDPR out in Europe. We have CCPA here in California. And these things are just paving the way for more and more governments, both state, local, and national governments, really consolidating their positions and instituting privacy regulations. And third, online tracking changes include the deprecation of cookies, and we'll talk a little bit more about that. Google's really influential in that, but also Apple's IDFA tracking change, which basically means that it's harder and harder for you to understand how your customers are browsing and where they're going on the internet, which means you need to create these one-on-one relationships. This is something that I'm monitoring very closely. This is by the analytics from Flurry, which shows the number of mobile app users who are opting in after seeing a prompt to enable tracking. It's only 15%, folks. This means that 85% of consumers are not opting in to be tracked. There are a lot of nuance for that number. Certain types of customers are probably opting in more than others, but the point is that we are missing the vast majority of our customer engagement based on a lack of wanting to opt in. So this is what we need to solve. Lastly, there are actual real-world monetary consequences here. This is from Data Privacy Manager, and we see that the EU is leveling huge fines on GDPR. Google, 50 million euros, H&M, Tim, British Airways, Marriott, and this is just paving the way for more and more. So there is actually real-world monetary fines based on GDPR. But the push for privacy, the push for first-party data goes far beyond just privacy because it's an opportunity. So customer experience is evolving rapidly. Brands are starting with consumption habits, which are changing, and these preferences. COVID-19 brought the future forward, I believe, about 10 years. But really, this gives us an opportunity to actually jump ahead in digital transformation. Because the world is moving from a things economy to an experience economy. And this is changing the way that consumers engage with brands. Instead of purchasing things, consumers are opting for experiences. I believe we are living in a full experience economy now. We see global spending by millennials is $14 trillion per year. 72% of millennials prefer to spend money on experiences rather than things. $63 billion is spent by US consumer brands alone on experiences. And this was a couple of years ago because it is growing 20% per year. So what we're seeing is experiential spend outpace every other type of spend. And the companies that are really thriving are the ones that are actually transforming themselves into experiential businesses. This quote from Sir Martin Sorrell captures the essence of brands' moves to better understand their customers with data. Now, consider Amazon's key advantage here, right? Amazon are masters of collecting and interpreting mountains of first-party consumer data, right? You go to Amazon when you want to buy something, they are able to, you are probably a member of Amazon Prime, the vast majority of the United States is, and because of that, this allows them to deliver hyper-targeted marketing and personalized product recommendations to you. They have built one-on-one relationships with their customers. They use insights from this data to formulate hypotheses and reduce risk in go-to-market plans. So their strategic bets are made to expand their business is not based on third-party cookies, but based on in-house market research. But the interesting thing is that this Amazon playbook, building these one-on-one relationships, is actually being used by a lot of direct-to-consumer brands. And this is why a lot of direct-to-consumer brands are actually outpacing their ancestors that were selling through other channels. So what we can see here, traditional marketers often are not able to identify their customers until they become purchasers. This forces most marketers to spray and pray advertising all over the place using unknown cookie-based IDs to target demographic segments and individuals. So this is getting much more challenging. Meanwhile, direct-to-consumer brands place identity and first-party data at the core of their marketing strategies, allowing them to understand their customers further up the funnel. This understanding of the customer and direct relationship leads to more tailored messaging and better targeting. This is my favorite slide. So Procter & Gamble is among the most innovative companies in the world, hands down. It's a company committed to balancing art and science to better connect with their customers. However, as you can see here, almost all of their products are now face significant competition from challenger brands, many of whom are direct-to-consumer. So ever since I was about 13 years old, I've been shaving with Gillette razors. Exclusively. Every single razor I've ever owned in my life was a Gillette razor. Guess what? Gillette has no idea who I am. Gillette does not have a direct relationship with me. They do not know how much I spend on razors because I don't buy from Gillette. I buy at Amazon or Safeway or Walgreens, and they don't have any direct communication with me. Meanwhile, Procter & Gamble's entire market share for Gillette has fallen off a cliff, while brands like Harry's, Walker & Company, Dollar Shave Club are going direct to consumer and actually building one-on-one relationships with their consumers. How are they doing that? One, it's the economic model of direct to consumer. Number two, they are scaling out experiential programs. These brands are not only sponsoring events, but also having shaving barber shops that are totally branded, so you can go in there and have a great experience and start building that one-on-one relationship with these brands. And this is not just happening with Gillette. As you can see here, this is happening all across the Procter & Gamble ecosystem. CPG that is based on these third-party cookies and based on not actually having a relationship are dying. And it's taking a long time for the incumbents to catch up. So many companies, such as consumer products manufacturers and automakers, have very limited direct customer interactions. Others are comfortable relying on partners, such as retailers that collect relevant information. But what we're seeing is that most auto and CPG brands have to rely on partners to generate first-party data. So just like my example of Gillette or auto brands, they're selling through independent dealers or Walgreens or Amazon. And these brands should be 100% focused on scaling experiences to build direct relationships with their consumers. Retail has direct relationships with their consumers. Financial services, your bank knows who you are. Travel and leisure, when you book through an airline, you often have a points program. You're actually building that relationship. Automotive and consumer product goods, we're seeing a huge disadvantage for them in this new world. So a lot of challenges, but also a lot of opportunities. Let's talk through that. So the way that we look at experiences is really an exchange of value. If trust is a concern, number one, brands need to establish trust. So for brands, one of the reasons to invest in experiences is to capture high quality customer data and do so with opt-ins, total consent of the consumers. This allows you to be completely compliant with GDPR and CCPA and programs like that. So experiences are an ideal value exchange. So let's look at a brand like Michaels. Michaels runs over 20,000 classes in store and online. And through running their program, they basically exchange these amazing classes, these amazing experiences, teaching people art and teaching kids art. And in return, they capture consumer data through registrations, regional preferences, shopper demographics, and they use this data to better develop their retail experiences and better target art supplies and craft supplies toward their consumers. So again, we're looking at experiences not just as a nice to have here, but it's really a way to exchange, to provide value and trust for consumers. So experiences create meaningful connections with a brand's most loyal customers. And they're doing this, and brands are not doing this as one-offs or small programs, they're doing this at scale. Michaels, 20,000 classes in store and online every year across 1,255 locations. Budweiser breweries, over 1 million visitors per year. Dick's Sporting Goods is buying up old Sears stores and turning them into experiential retail concepts, House of Sports. Diageo has 1.5 million visitors to online tastings and brand homes every year. Nestle has experimented during the pandemic with a global marketplace for online dog training. There are countless other examples, but just to see how diverse these experiences are, and when a brand takes it seriously, we're not talking about hundreds of people, we're talking about millions, sometimes even into the tens of millions, right? And these are people that are opting in to sharing their data and opting into a meaningful long-term relationship with large corporations that they respect. And these have one thing in common. Well, these companies generally have one thing in common. They have a data problem. Most experiences have poor data capture, even if brands are investing in them. And that data that is captured is in silos. Some in marketing, some in the experience team, some in the CRM team. Most brands don't collect actionable insights such as feedback, purchase data, and often there's not true ROI that's understood. So a global consumer brand we work with has over 1,000 agency partners who manage experiences for them, and only a limited amount of data that actually makes it back to their CRM. So how do we solve this? The old way of running experiences is like this. People go to the experiences, brands do a solid job of executing and managing these experiences, but fall down when it comes to data capture and activation. For the limited data that does make it into business systems, most don't actually end up in the hands of digital marketing teams or CRM teams. So does this feel familiar? We see this all the time. The solution here is to adopt experience relationship management, what we call ERM. So this is a multi-step process of scaling experiential programs, capturing and monetizing these experiences, centralizing the data from the experiences, enriching the data set with direct customer feedback and things like natural language processing, and then using that data to make decisions to scale the program and enrich these one-on-one relationships. So we'll go kind of quickly through the technology framework here because it's pretty important. So again, most companies do a pretty good job of capturing data, but there's so much data loss that they are actually failing to activate data sources for these digital marketing efforts. And it really requires top-down leadership to say, look, this is how we're going to understand this architecture, and we need to invest in both technology and also people. To unlock the value of first-party data from these experiences and events, we need technology infrastructure that can scale, facilitate data capture, standardize the data, enrich the data, and then activate this data. So ERM is really a cyclical process that starts with data capture and ends with activation. Activation is another way to say using that data to run better marketing programs and actually enrich these relationships. But the emphasis here is on robust integrations between technologies so that data does not stay silent. And to actually implement an ERM, we can support that through either a single platform like AnyRoad, that's what we do, or connecting existing business systems to support the model through a mixture of APIs and systems that actually talk to each other both ways. These experiences can provide rich data sets for brands. So the data falls into two categories. First is explicit data. This is declared data provided directly by the consumer, such as form fills, feedback, brand preferences, things like that. The second is inferred data, which can be captured from behaviors, repeat visits, predictive indicators, purchase behavior, and integrations. And this also goes deeper into things like behavioral insights, digital touch points, and actually getting to actual ROI numbers, right? And so we really think that modern ERM and experiential data is the right balance between explicit and inferred data. So how do we collect data from experiences? When running experiences, there are a lot of ways to capture data. The most common is online bookings or registration systems, which is really kind of the core basis way to start. The second tier up is surveys, social data, even things like age verification can provide really actionable data. The key is that each of these different data streams are extremely important, and it's not enough just to capture that. We need to actually build a common data set together. So let's look at a couple of practical examples. 3 of these are AnyRoad customers, 2 are not. First, given the sheer range of experiences that are possible, it's important to understand where experiences might best fit into your strategy before starting a program. Looking at a standard funnel slide here, we're starting with really large-scale brand activations, live concerts, large-scale events, things like influencer and celebrity events, AMAs, celebrity classes, and then getting into kind of more personalized ones, tours, experiences, tastings, showrooms, then almost one-on-one small group demos, car companies with test drives, personal fashion styling, and then things like group classes, customer advisory boards that you actually are doing even invitation only. So really, depending on what your company's profile is, we're looking to match the strategy to the tactics to make sure that you are scaling your experiential programs the right way. First up is Michaels. Michaels is a leading retailer offering over 20,000 in-store and online classes per year. The key value exchange here is that users indicate the type of topics that are of interest to them, whether it's knitting or ceramics or painting, pay a small fee, and in exchange, they learn new skills and connect with like-minded crafters. The interesting thing about these programs is that they're not led primarily by Michael's employees, they're led by other craft teachers in the community. So they're really bringing the community together at a large scale. Second example is Procter. I know we were talking about Procter & Gamble before, but Procter & Gamble owns Olay, and they launched Olay Skin Advisor. And they started with a data set of 50,000 face scans, and the technology's since been used by over 1 million people. So in response to feedback from consumers in store that shopping for beauty products can be confusing, they built an experience, honed it in store, and that facilitates that value exchange. So people provide their first-party data to Olay, and they get personalized recommendations based on different skin types and face scans. Another example of a large consumer brand trying to solve a customer challenge is Nestle. They noticed that a lot of people were buying puppies during COVID. Why would we not? And they decided to build a global online marketplace for puppy training. Most people understand that puppy training is hard, and they experimented with an online marketplace using AnyRoad to actually match people who had just bought puppies with qualified dog trainers all over the world. Consumers paid a small fee, provided information on their pets, and they got to take these amazing puppy training classes with vetted puppy trainers. And Nestle started to build one-on-one relationships directly with people who had just purchased puppies. We're looking at brands like Kalia. This is Carrie Underwood's awesome brand, which is owned by Dick's Sporting Goods. In 2021, they started offering virtual styling sessions. Again, it's a value exchange. People get personalized advice and personalized styling by opting into this long-term relationship with Kalia. We have brands like Porsche in the automotive industry. Manufacturers are often disintermediated, right? Because often people buy cars through not directly from the manufacturer, but through independent dealers. And Porsche understands better than anybody who wants to buy a Porsche, and that it's all about getting someone behind the wheel. So they've invested heavily in driving experiences, such as on-track experiences. People pay a fee, provide their personal data, and build a relationship with Porsche, and then they get to race a Porsche around a racetrack. This is one of my personal favorites, because how often do you get to experiment and just test out great Porsches while building a relationship with a brand that a lot of people love? So first-party data is important, but it's not valuable unless it can be activated against. So we could easily put together an entire webinar on this topic, and we might in the future, but we're just going to touch on this today. Leveraging data for marketing purposes starts by building high-quality segments in business systems. So this is actually a real example from a craft beer brand we work with, who wanted to launch a new hard seltzer brand. Step one, through their marketing efforts, they built three appropriate segments: craft beer enthusiasts, seltzer drinkers, and people who have a high NPS for their brand. Step two, using these segments, they build out messaging and creative programs to target the overlapping segments. What they're trying to do is they're hoping to enlist the support of brand champions to drive referrals to their new product. Hence, they target high NPS craft beer enthusiasts who also drink hard seltzer. They target these folks with a referral offer to share free tickets to a tour of their distillery or brewery, in this case, subject to local laws, of course. But they can also offer free samples to age-appropriate friends and family, sponsor concerts, really just trying to get in front of the people who fall within this Venn diagram. There's a really simple example of how to leverage first-party data collected from experiences. We'll be sharing more in a white paper on this. Please hit us up if you're interested in learning more. But really, when you're trying to create these new market segments, you can use experiential programs to figure out who actually lies in the middle of this Venn diagram. So a quick summary of the key points here. Number one, shifts in the marketing and customer experience ecosystem present massive opportunities for brands to get closer to customers. Step two, first-party data collection requires a value exchange, and experiences are the ideal value exchange, right? You are basically saying to consumers, we're going to give you something of value, we're going to give you something that you love, and we would like in return for you to opt into a one-on-one relationship with us. Three, experiences are an efficient way to capture this first-party data and do this at scale, efficiently, and actually affordably. Four, data from these experiences, even when people are capturing this, is underutilized. It's not used the right way to make decisions based on, and it's often siloed in completely disparate parts of your business. And the final point, technology may be key to overcoming these data challenges, but maximizing effectiveness requires teams and people to work together to make it work, not existing in silos. So if you're a digital marketer, go talk to your experience team. Get up, walk across the room, Slack, Zoom, whatever it takes these days, and vice versa. Because working together, we can actually scale these experiential programs and pull in the relevant data. So thank you so much for joining us. We are going to get to questions in a second. Please use the Q&A if you haven't. We have a couple of questions coming in. And a quick shout out before we pause for questions. on July 22nd at 11 a.m. Pacific time, 2 p.m. Eastern time. We have an amazing Experiential Trends 2021 webinar. Please join us. It's going to be great. You can sign up there, anyroad.com/events and webinars. And please feel free to email me directly. I'm Jonathan@anyroad.com. You can go to AnyRoad.com to see more about who we are, at AnyRoad on Twitter. I'm going to stop sharing this for a minute so I can get to some questions here. Got a number of good questions. Let's see what people are asking. I think we have a little bit of time, so if there are any questions that people have, feel free to drop that in. First question that has come up. How does Google's decision to delay the deprecation of cookies impact your advice? Great question. So if you didn't see this, Google was talking about killing the cookie. They actually decided to stay that execution until 2023. So basically that gives us more time to get the infrastructure right and change our approach to collecting and actioning customer data. So look, the death of the cookie is completely inevitable, and brands will need first-party data, but this gives us a bit more time to make sure we get this right. Great question. Obviously in the news a lot. Another question that just came in. I work in my company's digital marketing organization, and we don't have access to our experience data. Oh my God. How do you recommend we go about changing that? Great question. We see a lot of these siloed companies. So start by picking up the phone, sending a message, getting on Slack, Zoom, walking across the office, and get over to that experiential team. So technology can provide the data infrastructure you need, and we can help you with that, but it relies on teams and humans to actually communicate and work together. For example, despite reopening happening very quickly, many experiential teams had their budget slashed last year and need allies across the organization to get back to pre-pandemic activity levels. Right, and we need to make sure that this communication between teams is saying that it's not just about experiential for experiential's sake, even though we are living in the experiential economy. You need this first-party data, and let's work together to scale that. Any more questions? All right. Thank you all for joining today. It's been lovely spending time with you. I'm obviously very passionate about this topic, and we are knee deep in a world of first-party data here. Feel free to reach out if you want to continue this conversation, and otherwise, we hope to see you at the next webinar. Have a lovely Wednesday. Take care.